Buckle up. Woo! It's another edition of the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We're all fired up because we're heading to Indy next week for the 2026 NFL Scouting Combine. I am Rick Serritella here with you for the next hour of power or so. We're going to break it down, chop it up, talk some storylines, talk about how we value the Combine, what kind of weight and stock and emphasis we put into it, who the speed burners could be. Fernando Mendoza not participating, does that open up the door for some signal callers? Who are some guys that can become known commodities after the week in Indianapolis? We're going to get it all in. So hunker down. We appreciate you tuning in. It is the calm before the storm, literally and figuratively speaking. And we're not just talking about the NFL Combine. We're broadcasting live from the confines of the Jersey Shore, where they're going to dump another 1 to 2 feet of snow on us over the weekend. So luckily, I will not be arriving until Indianapolis until Wednesday. But we got the NFL Draft Bible Familia descending upon Indianapolis starting on Monday, where the NFL universe converges. And we'll start it off with head coach and GM podium interviews on Tuesday. Workouts begin on Thursday. Of course, it'll all be televised on the NFL Network if you can't make it in person. However, if you do make it in person, a couple of pretty cool events I want to tell you about. We got the Inside the League Scouting Combine Seminar, which is going to present the NFL Draft Awards, including the Best Draft, the CO Bricado Award, of course, the Bartlist Awards in honor of our good friend Danton Bartow, and a few special guests. Also, the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference, one of my favorite events of the year. I'll be there as a guest MC. I'll be chopping it up on some panels. We'll be having a lot of fun. We'll be at the Punch Bowl Social, and we'll be in Indianapolis, downtown, all week long. So go to smww.com, click events if you want to join us. Drop me a line if you want to link up. And we're all about the networking out in Indianapolis. That's what we do. But today, we break down the NFL Scouting Combine. And here to do that is my co-host each and every week on the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. Of course, started off in the UCLA recruiting department, eventually working his way to the NFL as a scout for the St. Louis Rams, then the Cleveland Browns. He'd go on to work in the XFL, eventually work his way to the Canadian Football League, where he served as an executive for multiple organizations. Of course, a former host of the CBS Today Show, a mentor at Sports Management Worldwide, and dare I say, a professor at Concordia University, checking in from Chi-Town. He is Russ Lande. How we doing, Russ?
What's going on, brother? How we doing?
I'm all fired up, man. Combine time, one of my favorite weeks of the year, and we are 61 days from the 2026 NFL Draft as of today. So 2 months for teams to finish stacking their boards. You know, as you know, this time of year, there's a lot of clusters there that we work through at the Combine, and athleticism can separate some of those clusters. But what are you looking forward to most heading into this week at Indianapolis, Russ?
I mean, I think more than anything, I'm looking forward to sort of after it's over, being able to find out from different scouts, like who did interview well, which guys really didn't come prepared for the interview process, and also find out about the medical. I mean, every year there's 2 or 3 players that go there. And I think we can both remember the running back Carlos Polk. When he was coming out of college, everybody was talking probably second round, maybe squeaks into the bottom of the first. And he goes there and both knees basically failed physicals. He ends up going undrafted.
Mm-hmm.
So every year there's 1 or 2 surprises negatively, but there's also usually 1 or 2 where they expect bad and they check them out and they're like, oh, that knee's no problem, or that elbow isn't a big issue. So I'm excited to just that side of it. Obviously, the testing, we want to see the numbers, but we also want to hear about which players in the positional drills stood out, which guys that maybe we didn't know much about, that were maybe second or third tier guys, day 3 free agent types that really said, hey, you know what? I may not be the biggest producer. I may come from a school that wasn't in the playoffs, but athletically, size-wise, I deserve to be in the discussion maybe in those first 3 rounds.
Yeah, I always love the draft combine because it's so fascinating from an evaluation standpoint. And you're right, because the things that people don't see at home are the two most vital elements of the combine, which are the medical and the interviews. We don't have access to that, unfortunately. But we do have access to the testing and on-field drills. And I'm just curious to pick your brain. How much stock and emphasis do you put into the combine? I know when I was a younger scout, I used to be under the belief that 50% of your film was your resume, and the other, no, I used to think 70% was your film, and I used to think 30% was everything else when you factor in character and combine and pro days. But now, as I get older and evolve, I'm more to the point where it's 50% performance, 50% DNA, personality, character traits. And now I just use the combine as kind of a gauge in terms of, does it confirm what I see? Do I need to circle back and go back and look at that? I don't think I do a lot of moving and shaking in terms of rankings based purely on the combine. I think for me, it's more of a separation factor, but everybody's different because there's no perfect science to this. There's no exact equation into how you determine what weighs more than the others. But I'm just curious from a personal standpoint, how do you view the combine?
Well, I mean, to me, film is still that's the gold standard. Like if a guy's not good on film, it's rare that he becomes a very good NFL player. But there are exceptions. There's no question. To me, where the combine has become more valuable is because of analytics and because you can really get, and every team has their own proprietary numbers that they've developed, you can get some unique scores. I know there were a few teams that they chart a production score, they chart an explosion score, they chart an athleticism score. And if all three are not above a certain line, then those players are unlikely to get on their draft board. So there's some value in it because, in terms of my opinion, in terms of when you look at these explosion scores, these speed scores, and these production scores, which are based on film charting, not the media statistics, if you can find identifying traits that show that a player with these traits has never made it in the NFL, even though statistically he was really good in college and film wise he was really good, I'm not saying you eliminate him, but if you have a guy that, say, you're a second or third round on your board, like in early February when you have your pre-combine meetings, and then he goes to the combine and his testing numbers, all based on your algorithms, say no one's ever made it with these numbers, that at least should give you pause and hope you avoid mistakes. My buddy who works for a team, he runs the analytics and the operations. He says the analytics aren't going to solve all the world's problems and they can't be more than a part of the thing. But he said the big thing is, can analytics make you 3 to 4% better every year? And he said that's where the combine really has a value, is helping you identify 2 or 3 players a year that you probably are too high on, and maybe identify 2 or 3 that maybe their college production was terrible, but physically they actually warrant consideration, not in the first 3 rounds, but at least being on the board. And he said that's where you can really filter out stuff and use that data for what it's worth. And it's also one surface. And that gives you that baseline of, okay, everything is this. And what fans may or may not know is, and then again, every team has their own algorithm, but most teams in this area are pretty similar, is everything is adjusted to be equal to the combine surfaces when it comes to 40s and all of that. So every team's metrics, if a guy has a 4.4 at his pro day, that may end up a 4.58, depending on what he ran on compared to the NFL combine. So NFL teams adjust all numbers to make them work on that standard of what was the NFL combine.
Yeah, no, very valid points. And we've seen the RAS score come out after the combines and a lot of next gen stats. I do like the RPM, ball velocity stat they use for quarterbacks. I do value the miles per hour now. And, I think eventually that might overtake the 40-yard dash. And we all remember once upon a time, I think 1984, or Mike Mamula, he's the one that kind of put the combine on the map with He was the
Yep.
first one that specialized in combine training, went to Indianapolis, blew it up. Was he the number 1 overall pick? He went
He
damn
went
high
like
that year.
top 5 or 6.
Yeah.
And the shame of it is that people tend to remember Mamula and say he was a bust. When in reality, Mamula had a good,
Yeah.
solid 8 or 10-year career. He never became a Hall of Famer, but he was a very good starting player in the NFL for almost a decade. And I
Yeah.
think, unfortunately, people sort of they almost want to lump him, sort of like they do with Mandarich. They say Tony Mandarich complete bust. Tony started for 6 or 7 years at guard and was really good.
Yeah,
But
Robert Gallery is another one.
same exact thing.
Yeah.
Gallery was not worthy of the second pick, but he was a very good NFL player for a good almost decade. And that's what happened. Like Mamula sort of gets thrown under the bus.
Yeah. No, it was quite a breakthrough in terms of where the combine came from and where it has gone. And I remember one year, I got duped. I'm guilty as charged. I can't remember the name. The Maryland offensive tackle. He went
Campbell.
out.
Bruce
Bruce Campbell. Yeah, he goes out to Indy, blows it up. And I'm saying, oh, man, this guy's dynamite. And later on, you found out that he was ambidextrous or something like that and didn't really latch on. But that's a perfect case study example of how you can put too much emphasis in the stock. And I think he might have went first round after that combine performance. But I'm sure there's going to be a lot of storylines heading into Indianapolis. And, John Ross now was actually almost a decade ago where he ran that 4.21. And
crazy.
Time flies. And there's a few candidates this year. I think Barry Brown out of LSU and Brennan Thompson out of Mississippi State have a chance to compete with that. I'm curious to see what Zachariah Branch.
That's the one I'm intrigued by. I think he's got a chance.
He's got some juice.
I could also see him threatening some records. I could see Branch, the 3-cone and the short shuttle. I think he's got a chance because he is side to side twitchy.
Yeah.
He's really good. Now I gotta make a shout out. One of my old coworkers who you may have met during your time is Eric Delorier.
Mm-hmm.
Works for the Montreal Alouettes, played at Eastern Michigan, but he actually at his pro day set some records that he had. I think it was a 6.86 or 6.76 3-cone. And that at the time was like way below what anybody else was doing. He murdered it. So sometimes guys from out of nowhere are going to put up numbers. There's going to be somebody at this combine that nobody's talking about that's either going to run fast or vertical 67 million feet or do something crazy that everybody's going to come away saying, where did this kid come from?
Yeah, the Yukon kid comes to mind.
Oh, the AB, the safety. Oh my gosh, he blew it up.
Obi, and there was a corner too. I think they had. Was it? No, it was Obi Melifano.
Jones, corner Jones.
Jones. Yeah. Man, there's so many good storylines, and there's going to be more this week. Let's get into some of them because we did mention it briefly last week. But Fernando Mendoza not working out at the combine, not doing any testing at the combine or his pro day. He'll just strictly throw to his receivers at the Indiana Pro Day workout, which is April 1st, by the way. That leaves the door open for some quarterbacks to kind of steal the spotlight here. I mean, who do you think has an opportunity to really, kind of elevate their draft stock from the signal callers?
Well, for me, there's one guy and one guy alone that's got a chance to either rocket up the boards or tumble down, and that's Ty Simpson. I mean, we've been talking about him all year. If you took his 25 best plays of the year, he's on par with any quarterback in the last 3 or 4 years. I mean, he's made some spectacular plays, especially when he's flush from the pocket, able to see the field, make accurate throws. But he's also made a lot of dud throws. Let's be honest about it. He's not a consistent guy in terms of first year as a starter, like most first-year starters. There's ups and downs. And NFL teams, I think, have real questions about, is he a starting quarterback at the next level or is he a backup? Is he a guy in the 3rd round you throw a dart on? But without Mendoza throwing, not that he's going to overtake Mendoza. I'm not talking crazy, but he could really show what he physically has, put a stamp on, hey, I'm a legitimate guy to consider as a starting quarterback, and in a draft starving for a number 2 quarterback, it's a chance for him to do that. And maybe he can push him. Now, I'm not saying his film warrants it, but maybe a good performance could push him into that 28, 29, 30 in the 1st round. when teams often will reach for a quarterback because they know he won't be there at 60. So he's an interesting one to me.
Yeah, and I've seen and heard some very reputable people. I'm not one of them, but I've seen people talk about Ty Simpson possibly number 2 to Jets or number 3 to the Cardinals. Supply and
Wow.
demand,
Wow, that's interesting. Okay, I
So
had not heard that.
yeah, so I mean, a great combine performance might catapult him all the way up.
It
A
could.
bad one,
You never know.
yeah, a bad one. He could, I
Yeah.
could. I mean, honestly, I would have like if it was like if you just take the names away and just say, hey, what is your grade on Ty Simpson? It'd probably be round 2 or 3, probably likely a third. But because there's not really a deep class, he's in contention to be the second signal caller, as is, believe it or not, North Dakota State signal caller Cole Payton, who drew a huge buzz down in Mobile. Again, a lefty quarterback, a one-year starter. We've seen the Bison. Trey Lance was a one-year starter. We've seen the Bison produce Carson Wentz. North Dakota State, Cole Payton. This is a guy to keep an eye on now.
Oh, there's no question. I mean, I know I spoke to some scouts who were down there, and they said that while he didn't blow their doors off and get them thinking, oh, elite guy, he definitely showed skill-wise he needs to be in the conversation with all the quarterbacks outside of Mendoza. So go to the combine, get that interview, knock it out of the park. He's got a chance, no doubt, to put himself squarely, maybe not as the second, but in that second to fourth quarterback range to sort of lock himself down. There are a lot of people that are very intrigued by him. I mean, to me, if I'm Atlanta and I'm sitting there around 2 or 3, I've got a lefty in Penix. It'd be a lot nicer to have another lefty. Bring them both in. We don't know when Penix will be healthy. It's a lot easier to have 2 lefties than having to flip your whole offense every time someone gets hurt. Now, it's also possible they'll just go get Tua when he gets cut, but that's a whole different discussion.
Yeah, well, Penix has injury issues. Cousins probably won't be there. So they're going to need some kind of insurance policy. To me, I still believe that Garrett Nussmeier stands a strong chance to emerge as the number 2 quarterback when the week of Indianapolis is all said and done. I'm a believer in this year's draft class anyway. If I had to try to find a guy to work with, he'd probably be at the top of my list. Other people think Drew Allar of Penn State could be a diamond in the rough. You got Carson Beck out of Miami, who, speaking of which, I think he will have a lot of emphasis placed on his interviews because we talked about some of the things he's said post-game and his body language. I think teams are going to really want to dig into a Carson Beck. And then one other guy who should be a fire starter out there. I mean, the combine is built for a guy like Diego Pavier, right? He can really drive the ball. He's going to look spectacular. But again, 5'9", it's hard to get over that hump if you're a talent evaluator. Any guys you want to comment on there?
Well, firstly, Drew Allar, without question, is a massive week for him. Now, he can't work out. Obviously, he's still recovering. Teams want to know, hey, what happened? In 2024, you looked like a guy that, not for sure, but there were a lot of people in the NFL said this guy's he's the first pick. Yeah. Like he's going to be the guy, played phenomenal football. Literally, the wheels came off in 2025. And it wasn't just him. The whole team just sort of crashed and burned. Teams want to find out from this kid. They want to get in his head, figure out mental makeup. He's not going to go as high as people think because of the injury and the down year, but this is a big week for him. And I was talking to NFL people this week about Beck. Every single one of them agreed with my take that he is going to go higher than most people think because at the combine, at his pro day, where he's throwing against air and he's just showing off that beautiful arm and an underrated athlete for a big, tall kid. Some coach is going to say, you know what? I'll fix the mistakes on film. I'll make this kid more accurate. I'll make him more confident. Somebody's going to fall in love with the what if with him. And if his interviews go well, he's going to be a guy, I think, in that second or third round, someone's going to roll the dice on. Whereas I think his on-field play is very up and down, doesn't warrant that second round consideration.
I agree with you, but I do think he could be successful in a short to intermediate passing game. I think he's more of a backup and spot starter than really trying to develop him into a franchise quarterback.
Yeah. I agree.
Point, right? But Cade Klubnik, let me ask you about him, because 6 months ago, the Clemson quarterback was being talked about as a first-round pick. Got off to a good start, and then he's another one where the wheels just kind of came off.
Yeah, he's an interesting guy because obviously good size, athletic kid. He's got a live arm. He can make the throws. I think part of it is accuracy, and part of it is when you watch him in the pocket, at least to me, I don't see a decisive guy. I see a guy who almost, when he sees it, hesitates for a moment. And that doesn't work at the NFL level. In college, you can get away with it. So to me, I want to see consistency, and I just want to see him process a little quicker. Everything I've heard is a really smart kid, really hard worker. So can you get that to translate? I was not really impressed with him in the games I saw. I thought he looked like a tools guy, but not a polished quarterback.
Yeah, I don't even have a draftable grade on him personally. Now, I will say I do have a draftable grade on Joe Fagano from UConn. I'm glad to see he got a combine invite. Joey Aguilar from Tennessee did not, and he just got denied his waiver appeal, so he'll have to wait until his pro day. Sawyer Robinson from Baylor is another kid you've talked about in the past. Haynes King out of Georgia Tech, another quarterback just to keep an eye on out there in Indianapolis. So that's a quick look. Oh, Taylor Green from Arkansas. There was a lot of hype around him coming into the season, and then he got benched actually down the stretch of the season. He kind of reminds me of that Buffalo quarterback that came out a couple years ago, and I think they try to turn him into a tight end.
Yeah, I liked his film. That kid, that's one I gave him a 4th-round grade. I thought he could be a really good backup, and didn't work out that way.
He fooled me too. Yeah. It was easy to fall in love with the arm, though.
It's a great example of, and I constantly try to teach people this, and it shows that even 20 years in, when I teach it, I still make the mistake is it's really, really hard to teach accuracy. Guys who aren't accurate rarely become accurate.
Very rare. Josh Allen is like one of the few examples.
Yeah.
Right?
And he was mistakenly touted as bad at accuracy. He was a little above average, but it wasn't elite. And they've done a great job with him. But guys that were bad accuracy wise, it's like unheard of to see them succeed. That's what that quarterback Jackson, T Jackson or something.
Yeah, Tyree Jackson. Yeah,
Tyree Jackson out of Buffalo. He had me really intrigued because he had a live arm. He's a great kid, but just never could flip the switch and throw the ball accurately, consistently.
He's Russ Lande. I'm Rick Serritella. This is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show, live each and every Saturday, 10 a.m. Eastern. And speaking of intriguing, I am intrigued to see what are going to be the official arm length measurements of Ruben Bain. And we remember the stir a year ago from Will Campbell, 33 1/8. We're talking about 30 1/8, possibly arm length at the edge rusher position. You buying or selling the stock in Ruben Bain if he comes in under 31-inch arms?
I'm really nervous, and I'll say it for 2 reasons. One, historical data, the shorter arms. But 2, and this is from, I got a chance. A friend was fortunate enough; he was able to find a way to get me 3 games of film via a link on his basically. I worked on his computer basically remotely, and the thing that was interesting as I watched the film was, maybe from watching games it wasn't as apparent. He's not a twitchy edge guy. He's much more of a power guy.
Mm-hmm.
Power, strong move. Well, if I'm a power, strong move, that means I'm relying on my hands. I'm not relying on my ability to threaten the corner and get around the corner. And if I have to take you on as a power defensive end and I have shorter arms, that gets me a little concerned that you're going to have trouble with those big 35-inch arms, those gorillas that are playing there at tackle. So it does concern me. If his arms, I would almost say if they're under 31.5 or 32, I'm hesitant right now to say first round anyway, but those arms could make me say 3rd or 4th round. I mean, it really
I've heard that. Yeah, I've heard that.
I'm actually intrigued by his teammate. I think Mesidor is a guy that maybe hasn't gotten the attention because of how good Bain has been. I think Mesidor is he's obviously a big, thick-bodied 270 kid,
Yeah.
But I think he's a better athlete than he gets credit for. And I think he's going to go there. I know he's going to impress in the interviews from everything I've heard. I think he could go there, really test out well, and really put a stamp on himself. Maybe not as a high pick, but maybe a guy that gets into that, slips into the bottom of the first round, definitely in the second round type guy. He's a really intriguing kid.
Little older, right? He'll be
he is
25 or 26.
Yep, and he's a Canadian kid, which I'm obviously always attuned to. But he'll get a chance. I think he's got a chance at the end of the first round. I really do. There's something about him that's unique, and I like him a lot.
Yeah, and it's not out of the realm to think he could be a better pro than Bain. I mean, I think that's on the table for sure. All right. Well, who are some of the guys that you are curious to get a look at? Maybe some guys who might rise, some guys who might surprise. Throw out a few players to us.
Okay. So a few guys. I'll go offense first. Firstly, I want to see Zachariah Brown. I mentioned him before. This kid, I think, is going to have an all-world combine. Now, whether teams get nervous that he had 1 year of production in college and had to leave USC because he didn't produce there, that's a whole different. I'm not getting into that debate. I haven't been to USC and haven't been to Georgia to find out what's going on. Him, I'm intrigued by. Ted Hurst, the receiver at Georgia State. How is that big fish in a small pond from Georgia State going to handle being one of 320 guys in Indy? Is he going to show up and chest out and test out well, or is he going to turtle in like some of these small school guys do? Then two tight ends I'm really interested in. One we've seen a ton of, Oscar Delp. When I watch this kid at Georgia, he's big, smooth. I want to see if he's got that twitch. Does he have the twitch to be more than a short area possession tight end? And the kid that really intrigues me at tight end is Martin Klein, or Marlon Klein, I should say.
Yeah. I was going to go there.
Yeah, he could be the best testing tight end. I mean, and he's like 6'7".
Unbelievable.
I think this is a kid that if he goes there and interviews well and shows athletically, not just speed, but movement skill-wise, that he is what people saw flashes of at Michigan. This guy, I think, could move way up and become a preeminent tight end in this draft, possibly the top guy, because he's so athletic.
Yeah, 6'5" and 2/8, 247. He's been timed in the sub 4.5 range, believe it or not. So
yeah, he's really intriguing.
Yeah, Oscar Delp's another burner though. He should be in the 4.5s.
And he's a smooth, pretty-looking kid. I mean, if you're a team looking for a tight end, those two guys to me interesting.
Especially because like Kenyon Sadiq is the consensus tight end going into Indy. He's 6'2" and 5/8, Russ.
Yep, and when I watch him, I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not trying to say he's not a good tight end. He's a good football player. There's just a little herky-jerkiness when I watch him run his routes. That's a little concerning. But athletically, the kid does some freaky stuff. And I'm interested to see, and maybe they already have it, maybe from the All-Star game, height's not there, but he still looks like he has massive arm length. I mean, his arms look really long on film. So I know some teams for a tight end, they'll overlook a little bit of height because it's not like he's 6 foot. He's 6'2" plus. And with long arms, some teams are more willing to work with that because he's an athletic kid. He just has to me, he has more of almost like a running back body because he's very thick lower body, not that linear trim tight end that we've all sort of fallen in love with over the last decade, like Jimmy Graham and Travis Kelce. He doesn't have that build. So that's what I'm interested to see where he fits in terms of athleticism. But yeah, he's no doubt a legitimate tight end prospect.
Yeah, I'm just looking at the board here, and Dallas Bentley out of Utah is a guy to keep an eye on because he drew a little bit of buzz at the East-West Shrine Bowl. And then there's a lot of love for Joe Royer out of Cincinnati, who was kind of out of sight, out of mind along the All-Star circuit. So I think the combine kind of means more for him. And then we haven't mentioned Eli Raritan. Notre Dame has a long storied tradition of putting out quality tight ends. Another one of these massive 6'6", 250 pounds, more of an inline blocker, but proved capable in the passing game this past season. And, going back to Sadiq, the one thing that can alleviate some of the concerns with the lack of height, I think, just watching Harold Fannin last year and what he did for the Browns was pretty productive, right? And I
Yeah,
feel like
and this kid's not tiny. He's
yeah,
not 6 foot. He's
right.
6'2" plus, and there's a
Yeah,
lot of tight ends in the 6'2" area that are
I can come
successful.
around. I can come around on that.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that doesn't concern me so much. I mean, it's not would I love him to be 6'4" or 5? Of course. But 6'2.5", I'm not worried. And like I said, I think he has long arms, natural ball skills, catching the ball. Just want to see a little more consistency. And he has that bubble butt running back physique that is uncommon to me, at least when I've seen it on TV. Looks uncommon for a tight end body. That's all.
All right, Russ Lande, Rick Serritella here, breaking down the NFL scouting combine next week. And, like I said, sometimes the combine can shake out some of these clusters. And one position of kind of clustered up top, Russ, is defensive tackle. And, I'm in the minority here, but I have Lee Hunter out of Texas Tech as my number one defensive tackle. I don't think that is kind of a league-wide perspective. However, I do think that could change next week in Indianapolis. I mean, this guy checks off all the boxes. I know there's some concerns about his pass rush attack and hand usage and getting after the quarterback. I think he's going to be just fine there. Peter Woods out of Clemson is a contender. He came into the season very highly rated, didn't have the year that he wanted, but still has that twitch, that get off. You see the flashes. Clearly, I do think he is in that first round equation. And then Caden McDonald out of Ohio State was shot out of a cannon this past year. I mean, he came on like a gangbuster. And then we mentioned Caleb Banks from Florida, who was injured and is just a man amongst boys. He was ragdolling folks and throwing them out of the club down there at the Senior Bowl. But I don't think if you polled 5 different scouts, you might get 5 different answers in terms of who their top defensive tackle is.
No, there's no doubt. And I think when you look at it, whether it's Hunter or Banks or McDonald, to me is the most interesting guy. Because, I mean, firstly, there's no doubt he can't. You talk about a guy literally going from, oh, yeah, there's that McDonald guy to, oh, my God, he's a dominant player on a team that's going to the playoffs. I mean, you have all these other guys around him, especially that 97, whose name I always forget at Ohio State, who literally looks like Alonzo Spellman. I mean, long arms, muscular. And this is the kid McDonald making all the plays. Yeah. I mean, he was now analytics and all that's going to play a role because is he going to break 6 feet? He doesn't look particularly big on film. He looks a little short and stocky. Yeah. And you and I know that guys under 6 feet, NFL, or I shouldn't say guys, defensive tackles under 6 feet, NFL teams run and stick their heads in the sand. They get petrified of guys like that.
They got scared of Aaron Donald.
They did. And he was over 6 feet. He was 6'1". Yeah. So as a player, McDonald, really interesting. I think the Banks guy could be the biggest risk, but most potential of all the guys in the draft. I mean, like I've said before, this guy looks to me, there's some similarities to Richard Seymour. I mean, he is huge. He has arms that go on forever. When he gets a hold of you with those arms out, it's over. I mean, he can kill guys, and he's powerful. Now, is he going to make plays chasing down ball carriers outside the box? Yeah, probably not, because he's about 330, 340. But for 330, 340, he's athletic. He moves. He can overpower people. I look at him as a guy that if they can figure out what it is to get him to play at a high level and keep him healthy, he's a guy that could really have a big impact in the next level. I think Hunter is a guy without question this week is gigantic. I've heard a lot of scouts talk about him as one of the most productive defensive linemen, a guy with a ton of traits. But now you got to show it to me because all the D-line coaches are going to be watching these drills, and he's got to stand out athletically for teams to say, okay, we think that twitch and that ability to impact games that we saw at Texas Tech, we got to be able to see, we got to feel that that's going to translate athletically. And that's, I think, what teams want to see.
Well, for whatever it's worth, I believe Lee Hunter will be the most impressive defensive lineman in attendance going through the positional drills. I think people are going to be very surprised just how agile and athletic that young man can move.
When he becomes the first D lineman to run a 6'2" 40, what do we come back to you with?
I'm throwing it out the window. All right. Russ, Lande, Rick Serritella. We're having a lot of fun here with our Combine Primer. We're here each and every Saturday. We'll come back next week and recap the week that was of the festivities. I think actually Saturday might actually be the last day of the Combine next week, but we'll hop on, break it down, and chop it up. Now, one other position that's kind of lumped up top is linebackers, and I don't remember in recent history a linebacker class loaded like this one. And you got the two Ohio State players and Sonny Styles and Arvell Reese. Take them how you want them. I'm a big fan of Jacob Rodriguez. We had a very fun debate about him and his athleticism, which I think will mean a lot in Indianapolis. And then you got guys like Anthony Hill Jr. out of Texas, CJ Allen out of Georgia, Harold Perkins from LSU, whose medical is going to be.
I'm going to cut you off on him. He to me could be the single most, like, his week is going to be the most important of anybody's potentially, because firstly, early in his college career, people thought pass rusher. Like, this guy was just streaming off the edge, just getting everybody. Then he slowly matriculated and became this sideline to sideline coverage linebacker who also could blitz. I think NFL teams, they want to find out the medical, they want to find out the athleticism, and I think they want to get a feel for when we actually stand up next to this cat and see him go through drills, not even the physical part of going through drills, just seeing them out there next to each other, getting ready for drills. I think they want to see how big this kid looks, because I think teams are still trying to figure out, what does he do with the pro level? Is this kid a 34 outside linebacker because he's a natural pass rusher? Is this guy an interior guy who we play off the ball in coverage? Is he a will? I think teams are trying to figure out. I think he could have the biggest impact on his career this week of any player there, because he could literally show everybody, hey, I'm healthy and I am the athlete that everybody wants. Therefore, stamp me as maybe not the top linebacker, because I think those guys from Ohio State are going ahead of him, but stamp me as that third to fifth linebacker. I got to go in the second round. And I think people right now, I don't think they know where he should go.
Well, I think if you remember Miles Jack, they didn't really know what he was, but he was a damn good football player.
Yep.
And that's what Harold Perkins is.
It really is. He's a great example of sort of, it's a little bit of old school scouting. Like, he's a football
tweener. He's a tweener.
Where does he fit? Does he fit like Miles Jack? Or is he going to be like that Isaiah Simmons, who really has never found a home despite being an elite athlete and a great kid and a hard worker? He's a guy that's sort of stuck as an amalgam between no positions. And I think that's what teams are trying to figure out with Perkins. He, to me, is possibly the most intriguing kid this entire week in Indy.
Yeah, no, I think so. And you factor in the medical that he had earlier in his career, and that becomes an X factor. But very similar in size is going to be Kyle Louis from Pittsburgh, who I'm a big fan of, but some people view him as a safety. He's going to come in under 6 foot. He was 5'11" and 1/8 in the spring, but 235 pounds. I mean, he's thick. He's well built.
Yep.
You know, and he's a playmaker. And I think he gets dinged a little bit for the lack of height and length. But Jake Galladay out of Cincinnati is another guy drawing buzz. Josiah Trotter from Missouri. Xavier Sori from Arkansas had a great combine. And then we haven't even mentioned Aiden Fisher from Indiana, who we both love. I mean, there's going to be some tremendous value on day 2. It's a great year to need a linebacker.
Aiden Fisher, I think, is going to have a good combine. I don't think he's going to blow it out. I don't think he's that rare guy. But I think
he's not going to go out there and wow, right?
No, but I think he'll run in the high 4.6s, maybe mid 6s. I think he's going to vert better than people think. I think he'll have a good, solid combine. The other kid that I'm intrigued by, we did talk about him last week, is the Murdoch kid from Buffalo.
Yeah.
Murdoch is a really, really good college
Good to see him up there. I'm glad he got the invite.
No doubt. I just want to see, I'm hoping he tests well enough to where teams like, okay, he is a good enough athlete. Because when you watch him on film at Buffalo, he's everywhere. He's making plays in coverage. He's blown guys up in the running game. But I know there are scouts that have told me, yeah, we like him as a player, but we really don't know if he has the tools to get on the field on defense at the NFL level. So this is a week for him to prove it, because I like what I see of this kid. I'm very intrigued to see how he does.
All right, Russ, Lande, Rick Serritella, we're bouncing around the NFL scouting combine. Lots of storylines, headliners, players to keep an eye on. Anything else you got, Russ? Players to keep an eye on, or
I got two more guys.
okay?
Firstly, one may be the top player at his position is the corner Mansour, the lane.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, I just want to see him. I think NFL teams, because he is under 6 feet and the trend is taller corners. I don't care. This kid's 5'11" and he's legit. I want to see how he does, not just testing numbers, but how do teams feel he interviews? And also, how do they feel he stacks up when they go one by one and do the position drills? He is very intriguing to me. This kid reminds me of that guy who you can just say, just go take that guy out of the game. There's something about this kid, just has it. The opposite end, and we've talked about him since literally, I think, week 1 or 2, is the safety at Texas. You talk about a kid that makes plays, great hustle, competitiveness. You love everything about him, but you're just sitting there going, is he a product of being super smart and super instinctive, but not athletic enough? This combine is huge for him. He has to prove he belongs athletically, in my opinion. Because when I watch him, there are times he can't get there. And I question that burst. And when I watch him pedal sometimes, I say, okay, he's a good athlete. Is he a top athlete? And in today's NFL, if you're playing safety, you have to be a top athlete. It's not like it was years ago where you have the free and the strong. Nowadays, both guys got to be able to cover. I want to see how he does this week. He, to me, is a great college safety in terms of production, being in the right place, keeping guys sort of together on point, making sure they're doing the right things. I just want to see how does he does this week. Does he show, hey, yeah, I'm legitimately a good enough athlete to be considered a guy who should be at least athletically a starter? And if that's the case, I think his draft stock is going to go up. He, to me, is one of the big question marks going into the combine.
Well, I think the combine means a little bit more for him, to your point, because people question the time speed. They question the lateral agility. So positional work, 40-yard dash, that's going to make or break Michael Taffy as in terms of whether he's a mid-round pick or a late-round pick, right? So there's a perfect example.
Yeah, he's a great example. I mean, it just we've all seen him. How many guys have we seen? Really good college player at safety come to the combine and just it's clear that they're going to really struggle versus the elite athletes in the NFL.
You know, one other safety that I have him and Taffy right neck and neck, Lorenzo Styles. I mean, shout out to Lorenzo Styles, heck of a football player. We both remember him. Sonny Styles gets all the love, but Lorenzo Styles, man, he made some big plays for Ohio State, and he returned kicks and punts. I mean, this guy is going to probably be the fastest safety out at the combine, but nobody even talks about him. It's unbelievable.
No, it's really odd that nobody does because, and trust me, I'm not trying to say, hey, put him in the top 10. I'm not, but
I got him as the 13th safety. I mean, he's a good player, right?
See, it's one of those, I don't know how he, even that. I wonder, like,
when I want to put him higher. I can't find any love out there in the scouting community for him, though.
It is odd. It's really odd because he looks athletic enough. He makes a lot of plays. Now, given sometimes, and this is part of the hard part of scouting, is sometimes you have a guy that's a good athlete who plays for an elite team, and he gets a chance to make a ton of plays because there's so much talent around him. Yet, when you actually watch him, you say, is there enough tools in the toolbox for him to make the transition? And I think that's what teams are trying to figure out. But I'm a little befuddled by it because I do think athletically he looks like an NFL safety.
Mm-hmm.
And he has range. He's willing to come up. He's an intriguing guy to me. I think he's one of the, and like we've talked about a million times, we're not in the schools finding out the information, but from watching from afar, this kid looks intriguing in terms of he might be a guy that's going to get a little bit overlooked come draft day and turn out to be a better pro. Not that he was a college player, but a better pro than where he's ranked going into the draft.
Yeah, no, I think he's going to turn some heads next week at Indianapolis. One other guy I want to discuss, shout out to Jason Candle, the former Toledo head coach who just recently took the UConn job. But what he did there and the Eagles got the corner a couple years ago. They got 2 more corners in this year's draft. Now they got Emmanuel McNeil-Warren, my number 2 safety, 6'1" and 5/8", 202 pounds, turnover machine, making plays up and down, left and right. Had a lot of offers to enter the transfer portal. All these guys did, and Carroll kept them all in there, and it worked out well for the Toledo corner that went to Philly.
Yep.
I think it's going to work out well for Emmanuel McNeil Warren. Maybe the avid, casual football fan isn't familiar with him. Don't be surprised if he sneaks his way up into the first round.
Yeah, no, I agree. He's a very interesting guy because athletically, he deserves to be in the discussion with the top guys at the position. It's just where do you view him as? Okay, wasn't in a P4 conference, didn't get challenged by P4 elite athletes at receiver. Where is his value? And I'll throw another guy at you from the MAC also. I'm not saying he's a guy that deserves to be in that discussion as a possible first rounder. But what about the defensive end Tucker out of Western Michigan?
Ooh, good
right?
one.
Athletic kid. Sort of when you look at him, he almost looks like a linebacker. He looks really trim and narrow hipped. But when you watch him, he's got a little suddenness. Mm-hmm. He has a knack for getting the ball. Again, it's that question. Teams are going to look and say, okay, who did you pass rush against? Was there anybody that's going to the NFL?
Yeah.
It isn't P4 football. He's the guy. I'm not saying he's like the guy we're just talking about, the safety that has a chance to push high. I just think this kid on day 3, he's a really intriguing guy. I think he could help himself a lot at the combine if he can prove athletically, hey, yeah, I know I may not have been going against the best of the best, but athletically I'm there. Because I will say when you watch him, he does look thin. And that just makes you wonder, okay, is this a 233 guy or is this a 255 guy? And I think we'll find that out at the combine, how big he actually is, thickness-wise, weight-wise, everything.
Yeah, he definitely caught my attention, and good-looking prospect there. One last guy I want to throw out there because he is my number 1 rated player in the draft, and we've been 50 minutes into the show and haven't mentioned him. And I don't know if he'll work out at the combine or not. I haven't heard that he isn't. I don't think he really needs to. Caleb Downs out of Ohio State. I mean, is there anything that he can do to convince folks that he's the best player in the draft, or will he just be downgraded and devalued like Kyle Hamilton and safeties that we've seen in the past?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know if there's something he can do to make people realize he might be worth taking higher than safeties often are. Although I do think that it's progressing now. I think teams that view a guy as not just a really good safety, but a really good coverage safety, I think teams are tending to trend towards a willingness. I'm sure you heard Harbaugh this week say basically at 5, he would be excited to take him. Well, considering Harbaugh is running the show in New York, I think that tells you that unless something weird happens, if Downs is there at 5, Downs can pack up for New York. So he's not going to be falling too far. Now, I wouldn't be shocked if he went 3 or 4. If you're a team that, like, if you're now Seattle obviously just won the Super Bowl, but
Jonathan Gannon, right, at Arizona. Imagine Downs and Budda Baker.
Yep.
Woo.
For sure. And I mean, this kid's athletic. He can run. He can cover. He's plays with a little bit of bravado. I mean, there's a lot to like about. I mean, to me, I compare him a lot to the Chargers guy with Derwin James. I don't know if he's as thick as
not
Derwin,
as big. Yeah, but similar style.
But they're similar style. They can play all over. I mean, Derwin James covers some slot receivers.
Yeah.
I think Downs can do that. I think this guy is the package that you want at safety. I'd be very surprised if he gets past 5 or 6. I really think he's going to go very high. We know he isn't going 1 because unless Mendoza falls off a boat, he's going first overall. So Downs is starting the discussion at 2.
All right. Well, I think Downs to the Giants would be a dream scenario. You get the best player in the draft at number 5. And John Harbaugh, if you're listening, coming back around again at number 37, let's ring up Jacob Rodriguez. Downs, Rodriguez. Let's go, baby. Right up the middle. We're strong, baby.
That's what he believes in. So,
well, how about Dexter Lawrence? All 3 levels. Jacob Rodriguez, Caleb Downs. Let's build it up. On that, Russ, we'll put a ribbon on the show. Anything else you want to get off your chest? Parting shot to the people before we let you wrap up.
Just a very exciting time of year. I know I won't be there this year, but going to the combine is always fun. Get a chance to catch up with a lot of people and see what's going on. I'm very interested to see and hear afterwards which players bombed their interviews and which ones really crushed it. I have one buddy in the league for years. We talk after the combine because we've got a 3 worst interviews ever list. And we always try to see if any players make a jump into that list. And I'm interested to see. It's been about a decade since he interviewed someone that really deserved even discussion in the 3 worst ever. So it'll be fun after the combine to see if any players get into the mix, because he'll be sitting in. I think he's sitting in every single night with his team's interviews, so he'll get to see about 100 or 150 interviews. So he'll be a good test. He's come out sometimes and he just stares at me like you wouldn't think it could be that bad. It was worse.
The good old date dash.
Yeah. Although I will add one thing that's funny, and people may not know this or whatever, but to interview a kid, you have to put in a request. It's not like you just go grab them. And I still remember at the Browns, and I won't say who the player was, but we had like the 5th pick or the 6th pick, and we put a request in, and the kid turned us down. Right? And this was a guy that ended up going in the top 10 in the draft. So we asked his agent, turned us down. We said, hey, we're up there. So we basically begged, and the kid finally agreed to come. And we interviewed him, and he was very, very cold in the interview. Like, wouldn't look at us, whatever. And as he's leaving the interview, one of the people that worked for the team said, why did you turn us down? And he said to one of our coaches, I don't remember which coach, or maybe it was a scouting executive, I don't remember. He said, just remember, he said, when I was coming out of high school, you were one of the guys that was recruited me. He was like a college coach or something at the Point or wherever. And he said, you made a derogatory statement about me in the paper when you couldn't land me. And he goes, you don't do that. He goes, that's not appropriate to say about a 17-year-old kid choosing his high school.
How about that?
And I thought, okay. And he literally, then we finished the interview. We get a message the next day from his agent, and he says he did this as a courtesy. He wanted to make sure you were able to interview him, but he will not play for your team. And it was like, okay. It was like, clearly this one guy had made such an impact that this guy was, it was, we've had a few. I mean, I still remember getting the fights they used to have back in the day before you'd submit lists. You'd wait outside rooms for guys, and you try to elbow through and grab the kid and drag him down the hall. But they finally had to get rid of that when a few scouts almost came to blows over interviewing kids. So they had to, say, like, raise the level. Let's get some education going on here and maybe put some lists together.
Yeah, well, we always appreciate the insight and perspective. Of course, numerous decades of experience. Both Russ and myself, we're showing our age now, but love chopping it up with you, brother. We'll do it again next week. We'll be on the final leg of the combine next Saturday, but we'll have plenty to talk about, I'm sure.
No doubt, my man. Well, enjoy the trip. Try to get a little St. Elmo's in for me. And
yes, sir.
And we'll talk again next week.
I'll have a shrimp cocktail for you, my man.
That's what I'm talking about.
All right, brother.
All right,
I gotta clear my sinuses.
That's right, exactly.
All right, Russ Lande joining us each and every Saturday. The All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show. We're live 10 a.m. Eastern. Of course, you can watch the replay. You know, we streamed it only on YouTube today. I didn't do the Facebook or Twitterverse. And we'll see how that goes. We might just keep it on the YouTube channel. So if you're watching at home, please like, share, subscribe. Make sure you get the new show notifications. I see Doug Dorner in the chat. Thank you so much for tuning in. And we appreciate the love and support over at allaccessfootball.com. We're counting you down 61 days away to Destination Pittsburgh. And nobody is breaking it down like the NFL Draft Bible. We're going to have well over 500 in-depth scouting reports, all of our intel from the training camps up to the draft, all-star circuit, combine, pro days, all that good stuff. We'll have exclusive interviews in there, background reports, verified measurements, everything you could possibly want. In fact, I remember the former Cowboys player who served as a scout with the Cowboys is Waters, throwback from the Landry days, goes, Rick, you know, Jerry calls us into the war room and says, why don't we have this? Why don't we have all this information? That is the in-depth analysis you're going to get when you buy the 2026 NFL Draft Bible. It's part of the subscription. over at allaccessfootball.com. I think you could still take advantage of the pre-combine sale right now, 40% off. There might be another few hours lingering for you to take advantage of that deal. But we'll be on location only next week, exclusive coverage. We've got Kate Carpenter doing it with the interviews. Our guy Dom Ambrose and Lauren Davidoff will be there on Monday. Will Donahue gets in on Tuesday. Ryan Paglia and myself get in on Wednesday. We'll have the Inside the League Scouting Combine Awards Wednesday night, 6 p.m. at the Indiana Convention Center. I think it's room 206, but I did post it on the website, today's post. You can get all the information there. Of course, we'd love to see you at the Sports Management Worldwide Football Career Conference. I'll be a special guest MC, might be speaking on some panels, be out there at the Punch Bowl Social, of course, the seminar all day on Friday. And then we'll be back here next Saturday to recap all the festivities. So looking forward to that. Again, don't forget to tune into the Sports Rage show every Tuesday. Okay. And I do believe that I have another appearance coming up on the Scout Honor podcast with my guy, Dave Del Cole. And of course, that's in memory of Dave T. Thomas, longtime draftnik who paved the way for individuals like myself, and we definitely salute him. So it's my least favorite part of the show. I have to depart and say goodbye. I do love talking football with you guys, and we'll do it again next Saturday. In fact, we'll be out on location. We'll do some live streams and some pop-up shows. Our guy Brian Baldinger will be down there with us, so I'll pop on with Baldy and break down some of the things we're seeing and hearing in Indianapolis. Of course, you get the Whisperers, the free agent buzz, right, with free agency right around the corner. The NFL universe converges in Indianapolis. So we'll have our Combine Confidential reports. We'll have boots on the ground analysis. We'll have updates every day. So head over to allaccessfootball.com. Make sure you reserve your copy of the NFL Draft Bible. For Russ Lande, I was Rick Serritella. This is the All Access Football NFL Draft Watch Show, and we'll see you next week, everybody.